What's up, everybody? Season's greetings, and welcome back to the season finale of Discuss Hawkeye, where we're going to be covering the season finale of Hawkeye. We're finally at this stage here, episode 6. As always, my name is Nick. I'm joined by my co-host Jace. How you doing today, man?
Doing absolutely swell, ready for the holiday season that is upon us, man. I hope you're ready as well.
Oh, I am ready. We've been ready for a while, though. We've been celebrating these holiday traditions here with the Barton family this entire season. So if you guys remember, we've done everything from letters to Santa. We've done ugly sweater parties. We've drank eggnog together and everything on stream. We've really been getting into the holiday spirit here on Discuss Hawkeye, so make sure to check out those other episodes if you guys haven't. But in this one, I thought in the spirit of Christmas, since this is the season finale, we're going to go ahead and do a little gift exchange. So I'm going to go ahead and open this gift from Jace that he sent me, and we'll see what we got here. Oh, cool. All right. So it looks like we've got a Hawkeye Christmas ornament from the looks of it. Let me see if I can get this open. Oh, this is awesome. It's got its little Avenger logo on the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see this. Make sure it's... for the podcast people listening, it's a Hawkeye ornament. He's in his kind of black suit. It's got the little Avengers logo on the bottom, which is really cool. So I'll make sure to throw this up on my Christmas tree later. But I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. I figured how befitting, if anything, right? Just the fact that I was actually torn. I'm not gonna lie. I was going back and forth between that and just a pizza slice ornament, and I ended up feeling like that was much more fitting. Yeah. Hey, it's Hawkeye, it's Christmas, and it's a way that now whenever you look at it, you'll think about this phenomenal podcast we did together.
Every year I throw it up on the tree, I'll think about our awesome podcast.
And we got a little Thor hammer. Oh my gosh, man, this is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, shoot. So it's a so for anybody on the podcast, I did send him the Discuss Hawkeye postcard that you guys saw from, I think, episode 3 that we made. I got one of those printed and put in there, and then we got a Mjolnir. Is it Mjolnir? Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah. It is Thor's hammer, and it's a beer bottle opener. So you use Thor's hammer to open your beer, which makes you feel like a badass.
I already feel so much more badass than I deservingly should just holding this right now. There's
no manlier way to open a beer. That's what I thought. So
thank you so much.
No problem,
I don't think I can ever open a drink for the rest of my life if it's not with this.
Awesome. Merry Christmas, man. And I appreciate the gift. Let's go ahead and now that we've got that fun stuff out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump into the episode. You guys have been waiting and watched the season finale. I'm sure you guys are ready to hear our thoughts on that. Before we get started with our general overview, Jace, do you know who wrote, directed, and the title for episode 6, the season finale?
Absolutely. So this season finale is going to be called So This Is Christmas. It is directed by Rhys Thomas and is written by Jonathan Igla and Elisa Clement.
What were your thoughts? What were your general thoughts on the season finale, and where would you rank it with the other 6 episodes in the season?
Altogether, I will say this. It's very tough because episode 3 was still really, really good. I liked so much about that. Dare I say, though, this could very much be at the top for me as far as the ratings. I would like to watch it again before I officially say that. But from first impressions, I'm really happy to say that I was so happy with this finale. Out of all of the live action Disney Plus shows for MCU, I am most pleased with this finale. Not because of, I think some people are so drawn to spectacle. It's got to be like the biggest, craziest thing. And what did they, what kind of reveal did they have? Or did they tease at the multiverse? Or no, it's not so much that. It's because the way it fit the show, the rest of the show, the whole entirety of it, we've been keeping saying time and time again, it's a grounded, realistic show for something that takes place in a world where aliens are invading and universes are colliding with each other. So it was really refreshing and nice to see it stay consistent that whole entire time. And for a finale to capitalize on that without going overboard, staying true to what it's been. And I just had a good time all throughout. Honestly, man, I loved the action that was presented. I was laughing out loud a couple of times. And there was some actual, like, really genuine, good emotional parts too. So I can't really say that there's too much. There's a couple of it, like, smaller issues that I have, but not really too much that I had as like a problem with this episode.
Yeah, as always, I think we've been really ideologically aligned as far as like our thoughts on these episodes so far, because I would say the same thing. It was between episode 3, I think, was I went on record and said it was my favorite MCU TV episode ever, out of all the ones that they've done so far. But this one and it's really hard for me to decide between the two because I think this one was very, very well executed, extremely well done. It had so much more big, like so much bigger stakes, I think, than episode three had. Episode three kind of had to get you into that act two, and it did it in such an amazing way and such an efficient way with an amazing action set piece that I still think is probably the best in the show. That action set piece from episode three. But I think with the revelations and kind of how everything tied together and all the really big character moments that happen in this episode, it has to be up there. So again, I think if I think I would still put three as my top, but this right as like a 1B. Just because I think what three was able to do with a lot less reveals, like character reveal stuff, and for it to be that engaging and that entertaining is kind of a testament to how well done that episode was. So I would still probably give that the edge, but this one really stuck the landing and really came out guns blazing. This episode, it was very fast paced, a lot of big revelations. Again, like you said, not too over the top, but there were some really big set pieces that felt like movie level in this TV show that I thought were really great. So now that we've got that stuff out of the way, guys, we're gonna go ahead and hop into our scene by scene recap here. The show, the season finale opens with a cane and some big lumbering footsteps from somebody that was teased in the end of the last episode. So this is going to be our first look at Vincent D'Onofrio's big bald baddie, Kingpin, as he comes into the room here, and he really commands the space in this, and talks to Eleanor. Eleanor has called a meeting with him, and she says that her daughter is getting a little too close, and her daughter's getting a little in the line of fire, for lack of a better term, and she wants out. And there's this great tense conversation between Eleanor and Kingpin. We also get some big kind of narrative reveals, which are she's the one that kills Armand. She says that I killed Armand for you. She says that she put Jack up to take the fall for Sloan. And she also says that her husband was in an insane amount of debt to Kingpin, which kind of set her on that path to begin with. So those were kind of the big three informational things that we got that really answered a lot of questions that we've had throughout the season. What did you think of this scene with Kingpin's first introduction, him kind of chewing that scenery, and we finally get Vincent D'Onofrio back on the small screen, and that interaction with Eleanor?
If you can't tell by the stupidly big smile that's been on my face since you started describing this, I'm really happy to talk about this. He slipped back into that role like an old glove perfectly. I'm so ecstatic that nothing about his aesthetic or his performance was changed or altered from when he was in the Netflix series. And also, I'm like really happy that now, for anybody that hasn't been introduced to his iteration of the character before, what's great is I can't imagine that this scene / episode as a whole would not make you want to see more of him. And it's great because you can, right? If you happen to like this, then go back. There's multiple seasons of him in Daredevil. Right. And if you have seen Daredevil already, such as myself, then this is so nice to see him like, just like he's never been off. Like you would never swear that there was 3 years in a gap in between him not playing the character and playing it again. And I think that's just a true testament to his performance. So that was phenomenal to see. And it's just a simplistic, but really good and effective scene. And then as far as on the flip side with all the parts of Revelations of Eleanor, thought that was nice to just get some confirmations, right? Kind of things that I think at this point we could all say like, yes, it's everything but confirmed in words at this point, but it's very suspicious and it's just like kind of hinting at it a lot. I gotta say, as far as for my own personal predictions, I was a little let down because I thought, like I said, she was going to be his right hand girl, like kind of like they were actually going to be a couple or something like that. But I'm not like disappointed to the point where I thought it ruined anything. I think this fit very well, trying to make up for the father's debt, not really wanting to be involved in the first place, kind of more so like forcibly into it. And then, just wanting to get out because of a pretty justifiable reason, right? I don't want my kid involved with this.
Yeah, it really gives her a kind of some redeemable qualities there, where you realize that she was like you took over a debt for you. First of all, you were widowed in the first episode. Then you took over a debt to one of the most scary guys in scary mafia bosses that you could think of. and having to pay that back, and maybe the concessions and the different kind of moral concessions that she made to make that happen for Kate. So it really, you kind of really understand where she's coming from, and you kind of understand her plight and her character's plight there, which I think makes for a really great dynamic with her and Kate, and makes her really fleshes her character out and makes her not just a evil for the sake of being evil person, but somebody you can actually see the steps and kind of the falls that they took to get to where they're at now.
Yeah.
It went from that scene. We go back to Grill's apartment where Kate has just gotten that news, and we see the fallout from that. She's very distraught, feels emotionally betrayed. She tries to call her mom immediately before Clint says, "Listen, you need to get a hold of yourself, because that conversation that she had with the big guy is not going to go well. He's going to hit back hard, and you need to worry about your mother's safety at this point." So he kind of hits with that. And then we cut back to Kingpin's office, which is very festively decorated. I love that he has that touch. He's a guy that loves Christmas, like all of us. He's got his office, or wherever he's headquartered, is very well decorated. And Maya comes in, and Maya, he's kind of lighting into her, because he says she's known for keeping a low profile, and he talks to her with sign language, which I thought was a really nice touch. Shows their kind of intimate relationship, and she's been kind of a father figure for him throughout this whole thing. And she says, "Look, it's over. I'm done." She says, "I just need a couple of days to clear my head, but I'm done with this whole hunt, and I'm ready to get back to work, essentially." And she leaves. And he kind of looks at Kazi, and he says everything that's happening, everything that's going wrong. He says, "There's an Avenger looking into my business. The Bishop woman just wants to leave, as if she works at," I think he says, Goldman Sachs or something. And then he says, "Maya now has turned on us." And the guy says, "Yes." And he's like, "What are we going to do about it?" In this very menacing tone. What were your thoughts on those last two scenes with Kate finding out finally about her mother, and Clint's kind of resolve to say, "Listen, that's not important right now. We really need to help her, because she's in big trouble," and her kind of finding out about that and trying to call her. Clint also says something that I did want to note before I kick it over to you, which is, he says, "Listen, you're my partner. I'm not going to leave until we get this thing figured out." He finally kind of acknowledges Kate as a partner and somebody that he's kind of teamed up with and worthy of his time.
It was cool. I kind of mixed emotions, but it was cool to hear Clint say the whole, like, "Hey, you're my partner." The only reason I have mixed emotions, because I do feel like, I guess, in the overall capacity of this, it's a little rushed to go from how quickly he was like, "No, go home and stay home," to like, "All right, I guess we are partners now." But for the sake of the show, I was still happy to hear that. It was nice to hear them finally just be on the same page with each other. But then going into that next scene with Kingpin and Kazi, I definitely liked a lot, and Maya as well. Just because I agree, the sign language part showed more of an established relationship, especially because they start off where Kazi's like being the translator. So then the fact that he jumps in, kind of further proves as far as how well connected they are. And I'm not going to lie, I absolutely love Vincent D'Onofrio's performance in that scene, because the way he subtly turns from cool, calm, and collected to, angrily stating his point, I just thought was so intimidating, and it's really, really like fun to watch. And you kind of immediately get this impression that even if you've never seen this guy before, why he brings this big presence and is someone to be worried about.
Yeah, a couple quick notes about the scene. So the scene with him talking to Maya and Kazi, where I want to note the sound. I thought the sound was really well done in the scene. What they do with the sound design on Vincent D'Onofrio is every time he shifts his weight, you hear those big footsteps, and it really adds to this like intimidating presence here. I remember even while they were talking, when he was walking back and forth, you just hear these big reverb like footsteps that happen. And the other thing I thought was a really nice touch is, obviously his performance has so much gravitas, and he commands so much attention on screen, and he's so intimidating as a presence there. But he looks at Kazi and he says, "The city needs to know that it belongs to me," or "the people need to be reminded that the city belongs to me." And in that last line, that last line that he says, they add this kind of sub and reverb to his voice that makes him almost sound like a demon in that moment. If you guys listen to that scene again, he talks kind of normal, and in that last scene, they add this kind of like this tone to his voice that makes it so much more menacing. And I remember thinking, that's really cool. I think it was great that Kingpin immediately knew that Maya was lying. I think it really made him more formidable as an antagonist. That the second she left, he looked at Kazi and he's like, she's already turned on us. Like, I can already see it in her eyes. I know it. She's not fooling anybody. And I loved that they kind of got that out of the way. It wasn't like, oh, he thinks she's on the same page with them. He knew immediately that she was out. And he told that to Kazi. So I thought that was a great touch there. It goes from that scene to the big trick arrow montage. So Clint and Kate are on the bus, and he says, we're going to need a lot of trick arrows. And she looks over like a kid at a candy store and says, trick arrows. And they go to, I guess they're in Grill's apartment, and they're literally creating weapons of mass destruction in Grill's apartment. And I thought this was really cool, seeing all the different trick arrows that they're creating. I kind of wanted to get a feel for what your favorites are, which I'll ask you when we get to that point, as the different ones that they made, which were really awesome. And the fact that she was using a label maker to make sure she labeled all of them to know what they are. Because if you guys remember from episode 3, which was our other favorite episode, she was kind of pulling arrows out of the quiver. And he was like, not that one, not that one, not that one. So I like that she brought like a really cheap label maker and just adds them to all the arrows, which if I'm nitpicking, would throw it off a little bit if you're shooting something like that. but but I guess they're good enough that they can kind of overcome that grievance there. So it goes to the trick arrow montage, and then afterward we get a really emotional scene where Clint talks to Kate and essentially says, you've made your decision, you want to be a hero, I want to make sure you're ready for this. It's going to be tough, it's going to be lonely, you're going to lose a lot, it's going to hurt. And he says, are you ready for this? And then she, in this great callback, talks about her experience in episode 1 as a kid and seeing him jump from these buildings even though he couldn't fly or shoot beams out of his hands. And that was what being a hero was doing it in the face of not having these superpowers and stuff, and really highlighting what makes Hawkeye so special in the Avengers. What did you think of the interaction between them at the end, where she kind of highlights his status as a hero?
Just a nice little bonding scene. Very cool for Kate to kind of see as far as how that comes to be. I did think it was a little funny. I love how, like, out of nowhere, they're just able to gather the resources that they need for these insanely crazy, technically advanced arrows. But hey, that's all right. I'll suspend my disbelief for a little bit. I love how all they need is a little that little tool that is like a mini blowtorch, or something like that, or like a little thing that just goes,
a welding tool. Yeah,
like sparks. That's all they need, and then they just give them anything else in the room, and they'll make whatever they need for you. But that was still a cool scene nonetheless. That conversation I also thought was a very nice, like, continuing the established relationship between them, just as the whole show has done a really good job of, in my opinion. With maybe a couple of misses, but with this, it's just a really strong point. I thought it was extremely nice to see Clint like fully accept that, hey, look, I'm not even going to try to talk you out of this anymore, and I also don't feel the need to anymore. I actually think that this is something where you're still young, you're still maybe unprepared to a certain extent, but I'm willing to admit that you have enough there to probably do this, but I got to give you this like final warning, right? This final disclosure, if you will. And that was definitely cool to see him throw out. It gave me vibes of back when it wasn't the same, but a similar type of thing with Wanda in Age of Ultron, where he's just like, look, you step out of that door, you're an Avenger now, and he kind of like gives her that final little disclosure that she needs, where it's like, this is your make or break decision here. And I thought that her response was perfect, because she's kind of identifying, look, it's not just simply like, yep, I made up my mind. It's let me clarify why, and not just why, I guess, in total I want to be a hero, but also why you specifically have inspired me more than I think that you think you have. And I believe it was nice for her to say that to him. That was a really cool thing and fulfilling for her. And I think he also really needed to hear that.
We go to the Bishop family Christmas party, right? Or the Bishop security Christmas party. So Clint and Kate are there. And we see a smattering of all of our favorite LARPing characters that seem to have infiltrated and are working as the service workers that are working around, handing around hors d'oeuvres and stuff. Jack Duquesne, as he promised, has gotten out of jail. He was bailed out. He's got a sword with him. We get introduced to little young Armand again that we haven't seen since episode 1. And we said, I think he's going to come back in this in this series, and he does here in the season finale. I love the interaction between him and Jack, where Jack is kind of flaming a child and saying, everyone remembers how you peed your pants in the Hamptons. And they're kind of quipping back and forth. And you can see they have this very childish relationship, which I thought was great. Yelena makes an appearance. She comes in the party. So now we have everyone that's really worth anything at this party aside from Uncle. Across the street from a sniper's perch is Kazi I think he's looking to take out Eleanor after Uncle found out that she was just going to leave. One little point too I wanted to make was I think the decision. So when they introduced the LARPers in I think episode 2 or 3, something along those lines, but when they introduced them initially, she said that they were mostly first responders, like cops, firefighters, and all that stuff. I think the reason they made them that is for this scene because I think if these were just LARPers, it would have been very strange that they were kind of this well composed in this kind of situation and helping him this way. So I have a feeling that like maybe this was an edit that was made in the script after this was written. Was they probably wrote it and said like, wait, how are these LARPers like all like helping them in this situation? But they're like, why don't we just make it so that these LARPers are mostly made of first responders? You know what I mean?
I can only hope that they brought that logic to the table. Like I really do hope that they sat there and thought about that of like, wait a second, this seems way too unrealistic. And like, that's right. We should squeeze a line in somewhere about this.
We should make these firefighters and first responders and stuff that are kind of used to these chaotic situations, which makes a lot more sense. So we go, Kate finds her mother. She takes her into a kitchen area and has a standoff with her, which she reveals that she knows everything about Kingpin. She's betrayed by everything that happened. Eleanor's mother tries to justify it by saying, listen, your father was in debt. You don't really know what happened after that, the pressure that I was under. But she's really not going to talk Kate out of it because she killed Armand. She is working for Kingpin. She's laundering money for Sloan. She's doing all this like crazy stuff. Kazi starts opening fire on the party and everything goes to all hell breaks loose. So Clint tells all the LARPers, get everyone out of here. So they start kind of escorting people out. He tells the guy that does the sound effects. I love that guy's he has like a recurring role now in the show, which is great. Clint goes down to the 12th floor. And then Yelena and Kate meet each other in front of the elevator. They go into the elevator here, and Kate is extremely annoying Yelena. I love the interaction with them in the elevator, where Kate is just Yelena knows that Kate's doing whatever she can to try to stop her from hurting Clint. But they have a very sisterly relationship where it's just kind of like, she reaches for the buttons and Yelena's slapping her away, and it's a very much like a big sister, little sister relationship, which I thought was great and really funny in that moment. Clint shoots the arrow up towards Kazi in the gas and smokes Kazi out of the room, and we get this really awesome action sequence where Yelena's fighting Kate, and there's this side-scrolling kind of thing, which I think is reminiscent of Daredevil. I think Daredevil has those like one-shot slide away fight scenes. So I thought that was cool that this is kind of Kingpin's reveal episode, and they kind of paid a visual homage to that kind of fight scene there, which was taken from Old Boy, this old movie too. But I love that the people are just kind of working in these office spaces while the fighting is going on in front of them. But what were your thoughts on the scene with the elevator scene between the two? Kate telling her mother about that she knows kind of everything that's going on, and that kind of reveal and the betrayal that she feels after that. And then this action scene, the fight scene between Yelena and Kate as they go through those office spaces.
Yeah, I thought the actual reveal part with Kate to her mother was nice, that she was like standing her ground. Like she didn't try to all of a sudden come up with some excuse as to why her mom was doing this or anything like that. She was just like, look, I got to call it like it is. You're a villain here, basically. I mean, kind of with what you're doing or what you're okay with doing. All fitting, that was good. And then, yeah, when kind of stuff starts to get hectic, with Kazi like opening fire and everything, leading into the beginning action sequences. Man, I love Jeremy Renner's composure of like when he gets in that little room and just kind of quickly scans the building, immediately identifies where he is, and just that's it. That's all he needed to do was see him, and then was able to quickly fire away, and just the accuracy. It just really kind of speaks to how insanely talented that character is within this universe, and in his skill set as to why he is the level that he's at. And then leading as far as to like the fight scene, I actually think with the whole side scroll thing, because I agree it's inspired by like scenes of Daredevil, but I also feel like they've even done it in the show a couple times. Like I think we saw that with Ronin when we saw him killing Maya's dad. And then also in episode 3, I feel like when Hawkeye and Maya are kind of fighting their way out of the office before he does his cool Avengers flip off of the railing there. So if anything, definitely liked all the aspects of this. There's a lot going on, like you said, but at no point does it feel like kind of too scattered. You can appreciate that all these different things are happening within somewhere of within the vicinity of each other, and none of them kind of feel like, why is this here, or why are we focusing on this, or what does this have to do with anything? They all made sense to the bigger picture of what's taking place.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big achievement. In this one, like we were talking about, so much stuff is happening in this very condensed amount of time. A lot of different players are involved. You got Jack, you've got the elevator scene with Yelena and her. You've got Clint down on the 12th floor where the tracksuit mafia is kind of closing in on him. Eleanor's missing, and the people are all looking for Eleanor to try to find her. All this stuff's occurring, and the show did such a good job of setting the geography of the situation where you know, okay, this is where we are in space. They're trying to get this character. They set up all the motivations as to what they're doing in the action sequences. So, like you said, nothing felt overwhelming. It didn't feel scattered. Everything felt focused. I knew it every instance. I was like, okay, well, Yelena and Kate are on a higher floor now, so Clint's down below, which means Yelena's going to have to jump and go down to the floor where Clint's on. It all made sense, and I think that's really hard to do and really hard to direct to where everything feels coherent. And I thought they did a really good job.
I do really love the line where when Kate and Yelena are in the elevator, and then I can't remember what it is that Yelena says, but then Kate's like, "Stop making me like you so much." And it was just, it was perfect because you could tell they're really doing a good job of embodying that in the performance. You can really see clearly that Kate is conflicted of like, I don't get it. I'm supposed to hate you. You're trying to kill my idol / partner here. And yet you're awesome, right? You're funny, you're charismatic, you're badass, you're a good fighter. What is going on here? And it's kind of perfect because I could actually see where a lot of people would, I feel like that's like a good meta comment. Like, I think it's like almost like a way of, that's like what the audience may feel like. There could be easily some people out there. I mean, I would never really had conflicting emotions from the beginning, but I could see where some people would be like torn about, you know, Florence Pugh taking over and being the new Black Widow. Being like, no, you know, I stole Natasha is the Black Widow. So I think this was like a great way to kind of maybe say what some of the audience members are saying, like, damn it, like why do I like you so much?
Yeah, it kind of mirrored the audience's feelings in that moment. It also, I love their relationship in the way it's like a sisterly kind of fun relationship because it presents Yelena with kind of this, not replacement, but hopefully someone that can maybe fill that relationship void that Natasha left with her, that kind of sisterly bond that they had together. And obviously that's missing from her. And for her to both in this episode potentially get closure for Natasha's death with her interaction with Clint, but also find someone that can hopefully be a rock for her, or be somebody that that can kind of fill that sisterly joking kind of role that her and Natasha had in Black Widow in Kate. I think that's a really good, efficient use for the character. I love the scene where the tracksuit guy is getting beat up by her, and he says, "Thank you for your advice. I spoke with my girlfriend, and we went to see Maroon 5 instead." I thought that was a really funny. That's where I got a laugh out loud moment for me. Was hearing him kind of do that in the middle of the fight, which I thought was great. And then Tracksuit gets the better of her for a second. He's about to shoot her, and Jack DeCane comes in for the save. I want to take a moment and pat myself on the back. I think from the very, very first time we saw Jack, I said, I think this guy's a huge red herring. I think he's oblivious to anything, and he's just kind of a douchey rich guy, but he's well intentioned, and that seems to be the case here. The whole episode, he was kind of coming in clutch and helping, and I think, you know, to kind of close the book on Jack for the series, I think he was a standout. He was kind of a highlight for me. One of my favorite characters in there. I thought the performance that the actor did in that instance was so well done. He was so likable and funny and charismatic on screen, and he presented a really fun red herring too, where everything kind of led to him being the bad guy, but it turns out that he's just being used by the mother in this instance there. But I thought that was really great that he kind of came in for the save. And then we get a fight scene between Clint and Kazi up on the 12th floor with all the tracksuits. Clint's using, again, I think you made a really great point with Clint's kind of immediate tactical prowess being on display, where he's able to scan the building, see where it is, and shoot it. It's something iconic for the character Hawkeye, so it's really great that that's upheld in the series as well as it is, where he definitely feels like he's always 2 steps ahead of everyone tactically, and I think that is a really highlight to his character. But what did you think of the scene with Kate going down, Jack coming in for the save, the interactions between her and the tracksuit mafia, and then the fight scene on the 12th floor where he's fighting Kazi and blows up the floor and everything?
Yeah. So when the Tracksuit Mafia came in, and I saw that guy, I was definitely anticipating. I was like, he's got to say something, right? There's basically like the
Right.
two standout Tracksuit Mafia guys, like the one that's like overly serious and then this goofy one. And yeah, I was like, he's got to say something. There's no way just going to leave that hanging. And sure enough, that also was one of the laugh out loud moments for me. And I loved Jack's entrance to save the day there. I
Mhm.
thought his whole presence and inclusion in this episode was very, very nice to see. And I couldn't agree with you more in the sense of I really like his character. I
Mhm.
love just how legitimately innocent he is about everything. Just kind of like has this like happy-go-lucky attitude, kind of, even no matter what the situation is. Like he rightfully should be freaking out right now.
Yeah.
And he's just like, no, here's a chance for me to bring my skills to the table of my swordsmanship.
Yeah, so there's a fight between Kazi and Clint up on the 12th floor. Clint pretty easily gets the better of him, and then he destroys the floor, jumps out of the window, and falls in the huge tree. I want to say, is that the Rockefeller Center tree?
I
Do you know what
believe
that?
so.
I think so, right?
If
So he
I'm not
falls into
mistaken.
the Rockefeller Center tree where we see an owl, which is gonna kind of come up later in the episode. But he sees an owl kind of standing in the tree there. He calls Kate on comms and says, kind of, where's our backup? And we see that it's all the LARPers in their attire. They've gotten all their LARPing gear on and they're coming out to take business. I like that he kind of undercut the tension of that scene by saying, we're in trouble. We're all gonna die. He said, like right when they came out, like, we're all gonna die. Like, this is it. To be honest, it does kind of fit the theme that Kate brought up earlier in the episode, which is you don't have to fly and shoot lasers out of your hands to be a hero. And it shows these LARPers who are their entire hobby is about not being like it's all kind of make believe, or it's not about being actually adept at these things, but even them are coming through and being heroic in this situation. So it kind of fits that theme of people that don't have powers stepping up and making a difference in these situations. What were your thoughts of Clint jumping in the tree? What did you think when the owl was initially revealed? Like, what, there's an owl here? What the hell is this? And then the LARPers making their big reveal, and Maya making the decision to kind of avenge her father and go on that trip.
Yeah. So like with that, at least just bleeding right into him getting on the tree. Yeah, the fight
Mm-hmm.
with him and Kazi was definitely like quick, good, effective. It made sense. It shouldn't have gone on longer than it did. So I'm glad they
Mm-hmm.
cut it there because I don't really see how Kazi could rightfully hold his own for that long against Clint.
Right.
Leading him going straight into the tree was fitting. I know
Mm-hmm.
it sounds weird to say, but there's something about it that fit with the theme of everything that was going on. The owl threw me for a loop at first. And I definitely nothing clicked right away. So I did kind of just find it to be like maybe it was supposed to be like a little bit of a haha moment, of
Yeah.
just how bizarre of the setting that he was in.
Yeah.
I'm so happy with how the LARPers were brought into play in total. Like I love everything about their inclusion in this episode. And I swear, man, it was another laugh out loud moment for me when they first came out in their costumes. And because like I felt like they almost looked a little bit like they could have been some more members of the Eternals.
True. Yeah.
So it was the appearance that made me laugh, although they were cool costumes though. So it's not to like laugh at the actual
Yeah.
costumes
Yeah.
themselves. But then the other part was when they were like, all right, we ready? Yeah. And they went right back to what they were doing before. Just like, okay, everybody get out of here. Go that way.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was it. That was absolutely priceless. I loved that so much. And it made sense though. It's what else were
Yeah.
they gonna do? But it
Right.
was kind of a way to gather more attention and
Mm-hmm.
kind of be more commanding about it. It is funny how now the MCU has set itself to the precedent where if you're in a superhero like costume and you're in a situation like that, you're probably going to be able to go ahead and get people to pay more attention to you and listen to you more than anything else.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I thought that was amazing. Kate sees Clint. She says she has an idea on how to get him down. He says, "Don't do it by any means. Whatever you're thinking, don't do it." And then she shoots and cuts the support straps for the tree. And we get this really awesome, iconic shot. It reminded me, it's not to the extent, obviously, but it reminded me of the truck flip scene in The Dark Knight. It just felt very like big and grandiose in that moment. And it was, she shoots the thing down and you see the entire Rockefeller tree fall onto this ice rink that's nearby. I thought that was a really big kind of movie quality scene. I remember being like, oh my God, that's amazing. So he falls onto the ice. And when he gets onto the ice, the kind of tracksuit people start surrounding them. And this is where we get a shot that we saw in the trailer, which is kind of Clint and Kate really, really going to town on all these guys and going back to back with their bows. I thought this scene was really good. She comes in for the save. You see he's kind of surrounded, and there's no way he could have gotten out of that by himself. And she comes sliding in like a badass and just starts shooting and taking out everybody using these. Well, I don't think they use the trick arrows yet. She's using her regular arrows, and he reveals his suit. So she sees his suit. She goes, "Oh my god, it looks so good," and it does. He looks awesome in his suit. Both of them do. They look great on the ice there. And he starts to say, "It's time," and he says, "Let's give him hell," I think, quote, which I thought was great. And that's when they start revealing the trick arrows, and there's a really awesome fight scene, a really long, satisfying fight scene where they're taking out all of these tracksuit mafia guys, using the different trick arrows in different circumstances on this ice that people are sliding around. I thought it was a really engaging setting for a fight scene and everything as well. What do you think of that scene with the big, huge Rockefeller tree falling on the ice and kind of the cinematic quality of that, and then also that fight scene where she comes in for the save and they start taking everybody out?
Yeah, the tree scene, it's cinematic is definitely a good word. I feel like when you take that into consideration, and back when I was saying in episode 3, like how his his flip off of the railing, the whole way it was shot and everything, also like cinematic quality. I think little things like those, when you add them all together, are great examples as to why this show more or less feels like an elongated movie rather than an actual show in a good way, right? Obviously, it has definitive endings for their episodes, but even then, the episodes tend to, as we've noticed throughout, pick up right where the last one left off. So it's cool because there's nothing sacrificed with the actual visual effect of everything or the wow factor with stuff just because it's a show or a TV show. It still does feel like a movie, and that was really cool to watch that tree kind of tip on over, save Hawkeye real quick, but then be put into a really drastically bad situation where was surrounded by, I'm sorry, like an absurd number of these tracksuit mafia guys. Like, I knew there was a good amount of them, don't get me wrong, but didn't it seem like there was an abundance of them all of a sudden? And it didn't matter, though. It was a perfect way to kind of have this be a way for them to have one last good final battle, showcase both of them, kind of like using not just the trick arrows, but their physical capabilities as well on top of that. So I was really down for it. And then as far as the arrows they were using, we'll throw out there, like, I like even just the one that he uses to kind of set the border for themselves. Like that one where he shoots them. So it's like, it has that electrical, kind of gate that is put up. That I just thought was a cool beginning to it all. And then I like a lot the one where like they shot it and it just like, there's 2 different ones they use that are very similar. They shoot something and then it shoots a bunch of little tiny things out afterwards. Yeah. So whether it was just like little like spikes that were being shot into people or like the tranquilizers or something. And then there was one other one that I wanted to point out, not because I thought it was super cool, but I thought it was almost like surprising. They've made such a good effort of making things purple, the purple goo, the purple, all this type of stuff, right? But then there's one where he shoots where it's orange smoke. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah. I didn't know if that was supposed to be like a fun call back to something, right? Or a nice little nod to something else. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I just found that intriguing.
I like the ones you were talking about. I like the ones where they shoot it and then it shoots around them and it takes out like 4 or 5 guys around them. I thought that was really cool. The sound design and the way they kind of shot that arrow in the camera, at least, was reminiscent of Yondu's whistle thing. The way it kind of and shoots around stuff really fast. I think my favorite was the magnetic one, just because I thought that was a really smart way to disarm everybody so that it made sense. Because had they not done that, I would have been like, why don't they just shoot them all on the ice rink? It'd be like, they have guns, they could just shoot them and take them out right now. Did you have the favorite one? The one is the PIM one, right? So the truck is coming. It's going to kind of try to run them over. And Kate notices it, grabs the PIM arrow, and as the Trust-a-Bro truck barrels over the side of the ice rink, coming down on them, she turns and hits it with the PIM arrow, miniaturizes it, and it kind of spins out on the ice. And then we get the payoff from the owl scene earlier, where the owl that he saw in the tree, its home has now been disrupted as it's fallen on the ice, and it goes and it picks up the Trust-a-Bro truck and moves off, and he just goes, all right, I guess that happened. What did you think of that scene?
it's right before that too, because he takes the time to mention when Kate asks, she's like, "What do we do now? Do they like stay like that?" And I love how he's just like, I didn't even really like think about that part. You know what? That
Yeah.
just cracked up, and it made me think. It's like, does that mean they had the same mentality about the big arrow? Like you just make the arrow huge and then it stays indented in the bridge, and it's just like, all right, let's just dip out of here. Like I have no intentions or plans of making it small again. I don't know how to do that, so let's
Yeah.
just leave.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that does bring up the question. I wonder what happened with the big arrow on the bridge. You know what I mean? I wonder. That seemed like it would have been a huge issue
Do
for
you
the bridge
think
that.
that, and I know this seems ridiculous, but since it seems like they always kind of want to do stuff like this in a funny way to plant seeds of stuff to kind of be a bigger part later, do you think that they'll be back in any capacity, those ones in the truck?
I do, because if they don't, it's a really dark ending. Because like the tracksuits have been really likable guys for the most part, so far. They're just kind of like dumb henchmen, but they seem pretty likable, and they've kind of humanized them as being part of the comedy in this series so far. And if they just fly off and an owl like eats them, that seems like a really like dark end for for like some tracksuit guys. So I think somehow it's going to come back into play at some point, or there's going to be maybe an Easter egg in something where, the next Ant-Man movie, he has to fix that or something, or he has to help them out of it or something. You know what I mean? Or the next like Ant-Man appearance maybe.
Did you have any thoughts about like the orange smoke in that arrow?
Oh, I didn't really notice the orange smoke, but the only thing I can think of is the only reason I think that they would maybe go with a different color is if it does a different thing. So if the purple smoke was just to kind of make people cough and get away as like a deterrent or as like a visual occlusion to where they couldn't see something, and then the orange smoke was like knockout gas, like you'd like go to sleep when you like inhale it. I think maybe if they did do a different color, it was to maybe make a visual distinction about what the purpose of the arrow might have been.
That's totally fair.
Right as they leave their ice rink, Clint tells Kate that she needs to go find her mother, and Kate agrees. She leaves off to find her mother, and right as Clint's about to escape, Yelena makes her entrance, knocks him back on the ice, and we're gonna get this epic showdown with Yelena and Clint on the ice there. At the same time that's occurring, Kazi, who has escaped from the building that exploded somehow, that entire floor that exploded somehow, he's down on the street level now, and he was about to take Clint out when Maya slides in with her motorcycle, takes out two henchmen, and we're getting an epic fight between Kazi and Maya here at the same time. So we get the fight scene with Yelena and Clint. Yelena seems to have the upper hand in the battle, but it seems like Clint doesn't want to fight her. So it doesn't seem like maybe she's out maneuvering him or she's kind of out fighting him, but it seems like he's very much reserved and holding back because it's Natasha's sister. They're having their scene, and she's essentially saying you're lying, and he's trying to tell her that Natasha sacrificed herself to save the world and it wasn't his choice, and that he tried to fight her to get to not do it, and that she overpowered him and she was better than him. And then at the same time we get an emotional showdown with Maya and Kazi where Kazi is kind of bubbling up that he's resented that she's run the tracksuits when that was supposed to be him, and that Kingpin's not going to stop, and he has to do what Kingpin says or he's going to die. And essentially they're having this emotional fight where she's saying, run away with me, we can both leave this all behind, and he's kind of declining that. At the same time, Eleanor is trying to leave in a car. Kingpin rips the door off the car, which I thought was cool, and then pulls Eleanor out. And then as he does, Kate comes up for the save and starts to kind of fight Kingpin in this instance. So it introduces all three of those fights there. What did you think of those different fights between the characters with Kazi, Maya, Clint, and Yelena, and then Kate and Kingpin, and how they kind of set up their resentment and each kind of the emotional stakes of each one of those fights?
Maya thought enough of Kazi to not just like run away and like maybe leave on good terms with him, but to say, I want you to come with me. I think that was almost like a little unexpected, because up until then it seemed like maybe she had like confided him in a little bit, but only because like, yeah, you're the only one I can. Now all of a sudden to the point where it's like, oh, like what is there, like a thing there, or is maybe a romantic interest that you want him to come with?
Possibly. I didn't really read it as romantic, but I can totally see where that would come from. But I think it says a lot that she came back and she tried to have him run away with her, because at this point she must know that he was maybe integral in her father's death. But I think, it harkens back to what Clint said to her, where he said, "I'm just a weapon, and I was aimed by someone that was maybe had more ill intentions." And I think maybe she heard that, and she thought even though Kazi was maybe instrumental in my father dying, she knows that there was a greater force that was kind of pressuring him to do that potentially, and that she was still willing to give him the out of like, let's run away, let's run away from this, and get away from Kingpin. I think what really stood out to me were the callbacks, and I think this episode as a whole did a really good job of callbacks to really early in the series things. So I love the line that Kazi says to her, which is, he says, "I can't walk in both worlds." That was a really great scene, and it harkened back to what her father said about her being a deaf child and having to live in these two worlds, and him making that kind of mirroring that assumption and saying, "I can't live in this criminal world and then live with you in this kind of normal life," and stuff. He can't live in both like she can. And I also think when she initially makes the killing blow to Kazi, him kind of looking at her and putting his hand on the same position on her cheek was this thing that her father did. And I thought that was a great visual callback to her kind of re-experiencing the same thing, but her this time perpetrating it as opposed to finding it, like she did with her father. So I thought those were really subtle but really effective callbacks to the first scene between them.
Clint and Yelena's that was the most emotional part of the entire show for me. Not just the episode, but the show as a whole. The actual, when they start talking, and the whole not the back and forth of, "No, I don't believe you," but when they actually started to get down to the nitty gritty, if you will, as far as what really took place, and when she finally started to hear him out, the acting on both ends was so really well done and believable. And it, especially from Florence, I gotta say, actually, there was a couple like small things. She didn't even say anything. She more so like made small noises in response to some things he said. And it was such like powerful and moving moments. So that was like my biggest takeaway, was not even like the fight itself as much as the conversation with them, coming to a head, and that being really nice to see, and an important moment for both of them. You kind of realize that Yelena doesn't care about killing Clint necessarily. She just really wanted to find some resolution and some peace of mind of what the heck happened to Natasha. And on Clint's end, it's one of those where he's already having a hard enough time to accept it. So to see him also then like help out someone else go through that and accept it. And he even says, he's like, we have to accept it and move on, or something to that degree. And I think when he says that, he's also saying it for himself out loud of like, I'm realizing that I really have to put this in its place, always remember her, but definitely make a move forward here. But then if I were to jump into the Kingpin and Kate fight, that one I was very happy with. I love that they did not hold back with how much of a brute force that Kingpin is. Everything from ripping the door off the car to the fact that he basically throws like these super powered punches, to Kate, and is like, it's not just like he like smacks her down, like he'll hit her and she flies across the room. Totally cool with that. I know he's not a super villain, but that still is very much what I would expect from Kingpin as a character. And also I'm just happy because even in the season finale, right, where you would maybe expect to see, oh, this is where Kate's going to get her moment where she like catches him off guard and does some. Nope, she barely makes it out of there. If it wasn't for that one last little resort that she had to get her trick arrows to activate, because I love how he just snapped them in half. If it wasn't for that, it's very easy to say that she would have met her end at that point.
I want to echo some of the points you made about Yelena and Jeremy Renner's fight scene. Both of them acting powerhouses in that scene. Florence Pugh kind of coming to the realization through, like I said in previous episodes, the whistle, the thing that he does the whistle, which is like, how would anyone know this unless unless Natasha was super close with them and knew about our past and everything. And he kind of tells her about that, and her realization that Natasha did love him, and that she wouldn't have, he didn't kill her, and he wasn't responsible for her death. It was something that she did on her own to save the world and everything. But seeing that realization kind of paint across her face and see the pain that she's going through Florence Pugh's performance was amazing. Jeremy Renner was great in that scene as well. Like you said, he's gone through so much self-loathing over Natasha, and she's almost like a manifestation of that self-loathing, where she's fighting him and beating him up in ways that he's beat himself up for the past however many months since this occurred, or however many years. And and he's kind of having to fight that part of himself that felt like he was guilty over Natasha's death and Yelena. I love how much other characters are set up in Hawkeye, but it's such a Hawkeye show. At the end of the day, it's really all about his internal struggle. It's very much tied to him personally, and kind of the inner turmoil that he goes through, that he's been going through after Endgame, and everything kind of is built out of that. So I love this. Very much felt like his show. It didn't feel like he was a sideshow character or something in the series that was setting up something for somebody else. And then the fight scene with Kingpin, I totally agree with you. Having him be this really imposing force between him ripping the door off and when he punches people, them go flying, and him taking the arrow to the chest and just ripping it off and getting angry. He was so intimidating. She actually comes away with the win by using that coin trick that Clint taught her in the previous episode. I thought that was a really good callback and a really good satisfying resolution for her to kind of overcome that challenge with that little kind of bonding trick that he taught her at the end. I thought that was a good character moment. And I thought it was great. She takes Kingpin out. She goes to confront her mother, and she saves her mother from Kingpin's wrath, obviously, but she does not save her from the police, which I think is a really heroic move. Being faced with your mother there and just saying like, no, you know, you did all these terrible things. You are going to prison and you're going to go to jail, and sends her mother to jail despite her mother's pleas to the contrary. Everyone's arcs feel like they were fully fleshed out and resolved. They didn't feel like there were any strings left hanging for this one going into season 2. Actually, there was one thing that I'll get into when I get into my predictions element. There was one thing that I wanted to get your opinion on, but after Eleanor's mother gets arrested, we go to an alley scene, which is where Maya confronts Kingpin. He's obviously been badly hurt from his battle with Kate, and when all those arrows went off, and he's walking through this alley. Maya sees him. He initially tries to maybe try to get in her good graces, or try to appeal to her as his daughter and as his surrogate daughter there. And it doesn't seem like she takes the bait. She holds up a gun to him. They pan up on the street, and then we see the gunshot go off. And then just to finish it out here, we get a great scene between Jack and the cop, where the cop asks him if he's ever LARPed before. She thinks he'd be really good at it, which he would. He'd be a great LARPer. I think I would agree with her there. We get a scene with Clint and Kate where he really talks about how she's made him a better person, before quipping that it's part of the suit, but about how, you know, rarely a person comes along that makes you a better version of yourself. And that was a kind of a touching scene between them in the back of an ambulance. Again, very Die Hard-esque at the end of Die Hard, you know, sitting on the back of an ambulance and going over that felt like a John McClane move, which I thought was great. But what do you think about those scenes with the fights resolving, her turning her mother into the cops, Maya's apparent killing of Kingpin in the alley, and then the scene with Clint and Kate at the back of the ambulance?
Yeah. I think, the turning in of Eleanor was a little bit, I was even kind of surprised. I'm not saying I didn't see it coming. It was like, I didn't know what fully she would do. I knew she was starting to really come into her own as a hero, but I thought maybe she would look at this as like all right, now mom, you've learned your lesson, now cut it out, or type of stuff. But obviously I think that would have been pretty ridiculous if they went that route. And it did seem to make a whole lot of sense that she was like, hey, look, this is really difficult, but I gotta, send you in, you're right, you did some bad stuff. Also, I thought it was a really good way of kind of like giving her another character development point without having to have somebody die. I think that is something that, yes, it's an effective route, but I think it's sometimes also like too heavily relied upon, of like, well, the only way that we can make them like grow as a person is someone's got to die that's close to them. But then as far as the alleyway scene, I don't know. I'm a big advocate of, look, if they didn't show it, it didn't happen. You know what I mean? So I have basically no reason to believe that he actually died. I think that, number one, Kingpin's too big of a character. Bringing back Vincent D'Onofrio was too big of a deal. And I think they have big intentions moving forward with him to do a lot of stuff. I think he's going to be a huge component in the Echo show. And I honestly feel like the Echo show could easily pick up with that scene showing what actually went down. Like, as far as whether I don't know if they're going to show it where like she shot and it was like right next to him, you know what I mean? Like a warning, like leave me alone and let me go. Or if she actually did shot him, but because he's just a hunking ball of madness that he was able to take it somehow and like get away. But I don't think that he actually met his end there. And then the very, very last part, as far as with them in the ambulance, I got to say there was something that stood out to me very much, which we've seen a lot of Kate developing, but we've also mentioned how we thought it was going to like them both come to the middle. Like Hawkeye would be a little bit more laid back by the end of this, and Kate would be a little bit more composed. And I think they did a good job of that. And this scene itself proves it, because even though it's just a quick little joke, the fact that Hawkeye makes that joke about, you find someone every now and again, and it's these suits, it's so perfect. I just think that shows that over this, he's gotten a chance to grow himself as a person, and has even picked up on some of the best attributes from Kate, for him to kind of be the best version of himself, if you will.
He's definitely shown that he's maybe, I think, forgiven himself for what happened with Natasha, between the fight with Yelena and kind of Kate, realizing that he's inspired people like Kate, and kind of giving himself maybe his flowers for all the things he's done with the Avengers potentially. So the character development has been such a highlight in the show so far, and it really felt like it stuck the landing in this one here. To your point about the Kingpin, so I really hope you're right. And there are a couple of ways where they could kind of write around this. Again, they don't show the act happen. They all but show it, where she's pointing it right at his chest. It zooms up, and then a gunshot happens, and you're like, oh well, I guess that's how that ends. Yeah, I don't buy it either. I think there's plenty of outs you could make. I think what they established when Kate shot him in the chest with the arrow, and he just pulls it off and throws it away, that maybe one gunshot's not going to take down this guy. I think that maybe the fight scene that we just saw with Kate, where he got hit by a car and then gets up and he's fine, it's like maybe one gunshot doesn't take him down, and she did shoot him, but maybe he survived. That's a possibility. Again, it could be like she shoots next to him. It's an intimidation tactic, and her saying like, you raised me, but and I still kind of love you as like a surrogate father, but you have to leave, or leave me alone, or I'm out of this, or whatever they want to do in that scene. So I hope you're right. I hope that they didn't just bring him back for the one episode and then just go like, all right, well, let's finish him off. He was here to make this finale really fun, and that was it. Hopefully that's not the case. But so he goes back home. It's a snowy day wherever he's located, and it seems like he's brought a couple strays that he alludes to with Kate and Lucky. So he's finally made it home for Christmas. This was the stakes of the show. So we finally get our big payoff where Clint has made it home in time for Christmas to see his family, and he's brought along some more family that he's made along the way. Very touching Christmas ending here. And then he talks to Laura at the dinner table after everyone meets, and he says, "You're never going to guess what I found." And he shows her this watch, and she grabs the watch and goes, "Thank you." And then he flips it over, and I'm going to need your Marvel expertise here, because I have no idea what this is at all. But he flips it over, and I think it was an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. logo.
It was the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo.
It was a S.H.I.E.L.D. logo. Okay. And he gives it to her, and he says, "You need to keep track of your things better." So this was obviously Laura's watch. I don't know the implications of that, but maybe we'll get into it here in predictions. And then he grabs Kate and says to go out back with the Ronin suit. He's going to finally burn Ronin and get rid of that period in his life in a very symbolic gesture of kind of burning that past and getting rid of that there before Kate starts to pitch him ideas about her new moniker, which are all horrible names that she's pitching there. And then it ends. The series ends there. What were your thoughts on the scene when he goes back with his family, the reveal about the watch, and then kind of burning the Ronin suit with Kate at the end?
I love the fact that he brought Kate and Lucky along with him. It seems very fitting. I mean, Lucky almost seemed like a given, right? They've had him along this whole entire time. I was hoping that Lucky was going to be doing something more in the episode. I was kind of like, aw, like, that's it? He just, okay. I mean, he seemed like he was going to be playing like an integral role. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if like someone was about to die and Lucky came up and like jumped and pushed a tracksuit guy out of the way, like with his paws or something. Like, I don't know. But regardless, was happy that he came along as officially part of the family. That was really good. And with Kate, it made a lot of sense too. I mean, where else does she realistically have to go at this point in time? Not to say she couldn't do anything on her own, but it's more so I think this really fits. She clearly wants to keep going the hero route. Why would it make sense for her to part ways with Hawkeye at this point and just do what? So I think this is going to be good because it gives her a chance to keep training with him, develop their relationship further, and perfectly leads into what I believe is going to be a second season to some extent. The watch, I was definitely a little like taken aback at first because I don't want to make it sound like it's not something that's interesting because I want to see where they lead it into, but I was kind of expecting it to be something else than what it was. So the only thing that I could take away from this is that there's a character that's named Mockingbird from the comics, and Mockingbird is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. that very much works with Hawkeye. And so basically, I guess they're hinting at the fact that his wife is Mockingbird, which, don't get me wrong, like that's cool. It would have been even more cool if they kind of clarified that fully here. I have a feeling that's going to be another thing that, right, season 2 is going to start to build up further and further. But I also kind of feel like it's a little weird to start to introduce unless the intention is to pass off the Mockingbird moniker as well. You know, like, because I highly doubt that they're going to get that actress to start to be a hero, you know what I mean, for the second season. I wouldn't be against it. I love her as an actress. I would just be surprised. It doesn't seem like that's what the intention is. But like I said, that is like the main big takeaway from that, is that it's, I believe, alluding to the fact that she could be this character named Mockingbird from the comics who works very much with Hawkeye. As far as the burning of the Ronin suit, I only have really one thought of that, other than the fact of like, cool, he's getting rid of it. It's a nice symbolic thing. What a waste of a good grill. Like, you know, you know damn well that ruined that grill. You're not gonna be able to cook anything on that anymore. You're burning whatever the hell that suit's made of on that thing. You just
Right.
going to crap. I doubt that's their main priority, but I couldn't help but think about that when they were burning it.
So some of the things that I had questions about. First of all, they made a very big point of Kate. Remember when Kate's apartment burned?
Yeah.
Like burned down? Well, you know what didn't burn? The Ronin suit that was left at her apartment. So his way of destroying the suit is to set it on fire when they've already established that fire does nothing to the suit, which I thought was a weird way. Which was a weird way for them to like end the scene with the grill. I mean, I don't know. I felt like he could have like, I don't know, shredded it or something. I don't know.
Why not shoot the acid arrow at it and let it melt?
Yeah, he could have thrown it up on one of the targets and had her shoot it with one of the trick arrows, and then it would have been over that way, you know? But that was the episode. We did get a really awesome, I don't know if you stayed for the mid-credits there, but we did get a really awesome full rendition of Rogers the Musical. I Can Do This All Day, their opening number for Rogers the Musical there, which I thought was really great. It was an awesome kind of festive way to end the series. I'm sure it was a really crowd-pleasing thing there. And it was kind of a happy holidays from Marvel, which I thought was a fitting send-off for the show at the end there. So we're going to hop into our kind of predictions, or at least kind of our kind of thoughts about maybe where this could go potentially. You definitely think there could be a season 2. I had some questions that I wanted to go through here. What happens, like, how do you think, because I think they're going to be woven back in at some point, but how do you think that they're going to weave back in the tracksuit shrunken guys that are in the Trust a Bro truck that have been taken away by an owl? Like, how do you think that resolves, or do you not think that they're going to have like a little Easter egg with them later on?
I do. I do feel like they'll come back, even if it's nothing more than an acknowledgement. Like if it just shows them next season, like they happen to be driving past somewhere and then it like pans out to like a tree or just somewhere where you see them miniaturize if they're trying to like make it by, like still trying to survive. So my point being, I don't really know if it would be included for anything else other than just like a nice little comedic touch, like a haha, look at this moment, you know, can you believe they're still around? I don't really know, but I do think it'd be funny to have them pop back up to some extent later on.
I think they should have a show or a movie that's like a horror movie about them having to survive the owl nest. And it's this really dark horror movie where they're just like, they miss their families and like they're stuck in this nest and it's super depressing and dark. I think that would be like I think that'd be hilarious.
Marvel's horror version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It would be
exactly like a horrific, depressing version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That'd be great. My other question is Clint retired? Do you think this was his swan song? Do you think this is going to be like with the Chris Evans and the Robert Downey Jr.'s, where this, you know, it obviously didn't end with his demise, but this might be very much the last like big thing we get with Clint in the MCU.
I do think that it's not so much full blown retirement, which I like. You know, I think this is something where we should very much expect to see him still be involved. I do think that based on the way they were ending things, right, they're very much trying to hint at the fact that Haley or Kate, right, is very much the next Hawkeye. But yeah, point being, the reason I'm saying all this because I don't think that we're seeing the last of Clint. I think that maybe he might play just much more of a mentor role in, you know, future installments. But like I said, I definitely don't look at this as like, well, he's hung up the bow and that's it. He literally just got the new costume. You know what I mean? So I would be utterly shocked if they introduced that, having it only really be worn for half of this last episode, and that's been in all the promos, art, and everything. What they've been releasing with the advertisements. I don't see them just completely ditching that.
I agree. I agree to an extent. I think what I would predict here is I do think they do a season 2. And when you brought that stuff up about Laura potentially being Mockingbird, they've revealed something about Laura that we really didn't get in previous MCU properties in this series. And what they revealed was that she was very much working like an asset for Clint, where he was using her to get information about people or maybe track people or figure out certain situations there. And I think I made the comment that she was like the guy behind the desk that they talk about in Spider-Man, where he says, I want to be your guy behind the desk. Ned says that to Spider-Man. And she was very much like Hawkeye's guy behind the desk. At least they introduced that in the series. So I think what that might have been at the end with him introducing that she was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and that she may be this Mockingbird character that we're talking about, is she may be that for Kate. So he and Laura may take over duties as being like their remote kind of the way she gets her information. She doesn't have the contacts, obviously, that Clint would have having worked in S.H.I.E.L.D. with Nick Fury and everybody, or access to the tech and stuff that he would and the materials that he would. So if he's a buffer between her and that would make sense, where he's maybe the Alfred to her Batman, and he and Laura kind of operate as her way of getting information about things. But I think he's going to have a much more reserved role from here on out. I think this show was kind of a goodbye to him as a focal point character, and he's going to have much more of a supporting role.
I picture maybe him, taking a step back, like I said, more of a mentor role to open himself up to do other things. But, between just how they presented him in here, nothing really about, he never talked about wanting to be done. He never made a hint at the fact that he was trying to, this was his last out and he was just going to be with his family from now on. He was accepting and cool with, like I said, the costume that he got. So again, I do see it to the point where I don't know how much. I do think Kate's taken the more front seat here. Mm-hmm. But I still think he's going to definitely be playing a part. But I do agree with, though, with your comments about Mockingbird being much more of I would consider her to be, I think what you're looking for is for Batman terminology, Oracle. Basically Batgirl, when Batgirl gets paralyzed on the storyline, she becomes Oracle, who's basically the girl at the computer desk who's providing all that info and everything. I would not be shocked at all if that's the role that she played moving forward. Mm-hmm. But I do see for both of them, I think it's actually going to be a little bit before Clint completely steps out of the picture entirely.
Yeah, I think I can see both. I can see the Oracle being a joint thing between both of them. So they obviously established in the series that Clint is not tech savvy at all. So Laura could be that person that gets information, that is able to research things on the computer, that's able to kind of do the more technical aspects of that, whereas Clint is more like his Rolodex of contacts that he can get in touch with for certain things and to use his kind of clout as an Avenger. They could both kind of serve that role for her and be that. And like you said, Oracle is this Batgirl that was paralyzed and now she's become Oracle. And we've seen Clint now with his hearing loss, something like a physical attribute, starting to deteriorate that could potentially push him into a role like that. And then the one I wanted to ask you about was the bag. So when they're doing the remember her bag? They so he's getting his suit in episode 5, I think, or episode 4, I believe. And she gives him his trick arrows in this bag, and they make a big point for her to say, this bag is from my wife and I need this bag back. You guys can't give me any other bag. I need this bag back. And it was a very important thing in that scene. And it just kind of got dropped. They didn't bring it up or anything in this at all. So did I miss something, or did you notice anything? Because it seemed like it was brought up this important subplot. And then I remember even when we talked about it in that episode, I said, I want to see how they pay this off, because it seemed like a weird thing for them to bring up in the moment. But having seen the whole series, I have no idea why they even brought that up in that episode at all.
Yeah, no, I'm believe me, 100% they're with you, to the point where, like I said, I made a note about that too. I have basically in my bullet point of notes, my final one is, where's the bag, with 3 question marks.
Right.
Because, what was the purpose? They didn't really present it as a, hey, you take it or leave it. You might be able to look into this and see something more, but this might also be looked at as you're probably looking too far into this. This was you took a moment to make it distinctly known in a very kind of defining transitional point between scenes, right? This wasn't just in the midst of conversations thrown in. It's what'd she say? This is I'm about to finally go to this next plot point here. I need this very convenient plot device to get to the next plot point. okay, well, here's a really, interesting line to leave you with. And it's just like, all right, I guess we'll leave on that note. And to not do anything about it, I would have even been fine if it was just a joke made later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some sort of like a cheesy joke about whatever. I don't care. But to have nothing was just like, why even include that in the first place then? That was so ridiculous.
I have no idea what was going on with that. I don't know if maybe the payoff was left on the cutting room floor where they were just like, we have to get this season finale to be under a certain amount of time potentially, and that just didn't make the cut. I'm not sure. I'd be very interested to find out what it is regarding that, or if it's something that's going to be picked up in season 2 or something, which seems like a weird subplot to pick up, for a season 2 arc.
She's going to be the lead villain of the second season because she never got her bag back.
Right. She's mad she never got her bag back, and she's been radicalized for Hawkeye season 2. Maybe that's the case. But that wraps it up. I had so much fun with this season. I want to thank everyone that has come along for the ride and watched each one of these episodes and partaken in these Christmas traditions with us. But mostly I want to thank my co-host Jace for coming in week to week and talking about it. I really appreciate it. It's been so much fun talking about it and getting this hour each week to kind of dissect and let the episode kind of sink in. I feel like I've enjoyed it so much more having had the discussions with you. So I really want to thank you for coming on.
Oh man, well, I thank you so much. I appreciate the words there, and you basically echoed exactly what I feel. It's something that what really makes it nice to enjoy these shows even more is not just watching them itself. That's already a big part of it, of course, but then it's the fact of being able to kind of like dissect ideas and theories and other stuff like this with other people who genuinely are into it too. So I very much appreciate, as I've mentioned before, you reaching out to me to do this with you in the first place. I had a fantastic time talking about each episode in depth like this. For anybody that's been listening or watching this entire time, thank you so much for, riding out the entire series with us and everything like that. And hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have, maybe even more. And if this comes around to a season 2, then perhaps it'd be a perfect time to go ahead and kind of reconvene and talk about that as well.
If you guys are watching on the YouTube channel, make sure to like and subscribe on the video. If you guys are listening on the podcast, make sure to share it and give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And guys, this is called The Discuss. So we want to hear from you guys. Hit in the comments. Let us know what you thought of this season 1 of the Hawkeye, and let's have that discussion down below. And if you guys have any predictions on potentially a season 2, if you guys think Kingpin's actually gone, let us know all of that stuff in the comments down below. I've written 2 reviews recently. I did The Power of the Dog, and I'm writing The Tragedy of Macbeth, which should be up fairly soon on the site, the Dis Media, which is linked in the description below. And I'm working on some new content for the Diss Track channel, which is linked in the description below as well. Jace, I know you're working on you have a slate of stuff coming up. So guys, make sure to hop down in the description and subscribe to the Burja Rocar channel. He's going to have a lot of cool Marvel content for all you Marvel heads out there that are going to be coming up very shortly. But again, thank you guys so much. I am going to go right after we record here and put my Hawkeye ornament up on my tree. But thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a fantastic Christmas and holiday season. I hope Jace pops open some beers with his Mjolnir bottle opener, which is great. As always, guys, discuss amongst yourselves, and we will see you guys next season, hopefully.